Hi everyone, I'm going to show you today how to trim half square triangles. Come quilt with me. I have already pressed my fabric scraps here from my jar. They're nice and smooth. You can start with any size that is called for in your pattern. I am going to use 4.5 because that's what this scrap is. So I have my Creative Grids ruler. This is a 4.5 inch by 12 inch ruler. I'm going to cut the selvage off first. When making a half square triangle, you're going to start with straight fabric first of all. A lot of patterns use charm packs, which are the pre-cut 5x5s, and that works perfect. Anytime you use fabric that you're cutting yourself, just make sure it's square. Now that I've squared that up, I am going to go ahead and just square this background fabric as well. You can make half square triangles with 2 prints, 2 solids, 2 low volumes, any combination that you want depending on your quilt that you are making. Now that I have these both cut to size 4.5 inches, I'm going to go ahead and press this one in half. You can also draw a line diagonal to diagonal, but I find when I'm making a lot of them, pressing is just faster for me. I simply take my fabric, fold it in half, press it, and now I have a line diagonal to diagonal. I'm going to line up my top square with the bottom square and just sew 1/4 inch down on either side. So I have a 1/4 inch foot. It is set to 1/4 inch, and I'll just start this way. I just flip it around, move it on this side. My 1/4 inch foot is on this diagonal line, and now I sew on this other side. Cut my threads. If I were chain piecing a bunch of half square triangles, when I sewed the first side, I would not have flipped it. I would have just put in my next set and kept going, and then when all the half square triangles are done, you flip the whole thing and then do the other side. It makes it much faster. I'm going to go ahead and cut it in half now along the diagonal. Just take a ruler and put it on line corner to corner, cut it in half. Now I have 2 half square triangle units from 1 square, and when I first started quilting, I always used to wonder, what are these? Do you cut them off? Do you keep them? You cut them off. They're called dog ears, and you cut them off because there'll be too much bulk if you sew them together. This is just going to get in the way. It also is helpful to cut them off when you square them. You want to square all your half square triangles to whatever size is called for in the pattern, because even if you have a 1/16 of an inch or an 1/8 of an inch off, over 300 triangles, that will add up. So I have 2 rulers here. These are the 1/2 inch ones. They go from 1.5 to 6.5 inches. This one goes from 2 inches to 6 inches. I'm going to choose the 4-inch one. I put the dotted line on my seam line. Sometimes you have hardly anything to trim, and other times there's a lot. But like I said, you even want to trim the little bit that is there, because over many, many half square triangles, it just gets your points off. It just gets your seams misaligned. And you cut the dog ears off using these little slots, which I just love because I used to just press them. Oh, see, I didn't quite get that. I used to just press them, and then I had to cut them with scissors. And this is just much faster. Okay, I'm going to show you one more time here. I match my 4-inch seam line onto my seam line. I'm going to trim anything. See, you can see here, this side has a lot more to trim. And sometimes that's because, 1/4 inch. Sometimes that's because of the shape of the fabric. It just gets off sometimes, but that's why we square them. And I love this tool. You can square them using a square ruler, but I just find these to be a little bit harder because you have to get them turned the correct way and orient your ruler, and I never liked doing that because I always never really got confused. But now we have these, and look, you can double check the size. I am gonna turn, where's just my ruler here, and it is 4 inches right there, and another 4 inches. So it's square. It is right on. We don't have the dog ears. Looks like I missed one there though. I forgot to cut that. Okay, and then you would just press them to the dark side. If you're using 2 fabrics that are both dark, I just choose one to be the dark side, and then I press it back. And I do press every single half square triangle on my pressing mat with my iron. You can finger press if you have a lot, but for the most crisp seams, always use an iron. Half square triangles are some of my favorite blocks to make. Now I'm going to show you a couple of my patterns and quilts that I've made using half square triangles. Here is a block from my star glass quilt. This is a perfect example of why it is important to square all your half square triangles, because this is made up of quite a few half square triangles, and when you don't square them, especially because they're square to the smaller size, then the points would be off and it would be really difficult to match up this many. So it is really helpful to get into the habit of squaring your half square triangles. I resisted for the longest time when I started quilting, and I really struggled with getting my points to match up. Once I resigned myself to squaring, it was easy. I could match them up all the time.